case, of course, we know that there have been quite a number of issues that have come up surrounding the results, and that's what we want to take some kind of look at in this case. And it's very important because now attention is probably going to shift slightly away from, the process of results and how whoever it was that won and all of that, and now come to the issue of the procedure post the results. And for that, we're being joined in our Lagos studios here by Mr. Sola Adeyegbe, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you very much for joining us on this Sunday evening, taking our time from your rest period.
Thank you, Buki and Ladi. I'm happy to be here. The last time I was at Channels was when you were at Adeyegbe's place and also at your Maryland office.
Indeed.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Long time
I'm
ago.
glad that it's a beautiful studio.
You're welcome back. You're welcome back. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's, while we wait for all of this, of course, in the presidential election, there were a lot of issues, particularly around the upload of results to this IREF portal, which we've just been showing our viewers, and the fact that, INEC had promised the electorate that, as soon as results were declared at the polling unit, they'll be uploaded, and if you went there, you could see it and all of that. That didn't happen. In this case, even in this election, it's faster, but it's not quite real time. But does this, legally speaking, have anything to do in terms of the validity of results, thus declared?
Thank you very much. This is a very, very topical issue because the entire election of 25th of February has been viewed in this prism that INEC promised something and didn't deliver on it. You promised that you would upload results real time. And that's a very serious phrase to use, real time. What does that mean, really? It means that as you are doing a transaction, it goes to where it should go at that same time. We are transmitting this recording, this interaction now, real time. But what the Beavers does, I would want to say it in a second, what it does when it comes to transmission or transfer. The officer of INEC, after the voting, records what the results are into a form called the EC8A. He scans that through the Beavers to the IREV. That's a transfer of document. That is, by any stretch, not a real-time transmission anymore. You are just sending a recorded document by PDF into another equipment, the IREV. That's what it is. In your banking transaction, for instance, that's real-time. You pay me 10 naira. It wants to say send. It comes to me. So unless INEC has a device where, as I'm thumb printing right now in my polling unit, it goes to INEC servers. That's real time, in simple and short. What we have today is like INEC promising what it does not have the capacity to do. That's what it is. What does the law say, and what does the regulation say? Is what I will hinge my own arguments upon because of my profession as a lawyer. And I'm in the realist school of thought, and also what is just. So what does the law say? Even if INEC chairman has promised the world, I will transmit real time, he can say what he wants to say. But what does the law guiding him say?
But what the law says, has had a shadow of doubt cast upon it, particularly after the presidential election, when we heard party agents and, all other election watchers argue vigorously that INEC was not bound to upload the results real time, that it could have uploaded the results at a time convenient for it. So where does that leave what the law says about the uploading of results to the IREF portal?
Next question, Buki. What does the law say? What does the regulation say? It says 3 things must happen after the voting. The presiding officer has a duty to transfer the result, which has been recorded into the Form EC8A, into the INEC Collation Center. That's one. He also, number 2 now, he also must upload it with the VIVAC machine to the IREV. That's number 2. Number 3, he must take the VIVAC machine itself and the Form EC8A, which has been signed by himself and the party agents, to the Collation Center.
I need to put you on pause. I did say this before we go. Let's go to Ogun Collation Center, where, as expected, incumbent Governor Dapo Abiodun, and now Akwa Ibom has been won by the candidate of the PDP, Pastor Umo Eno. While we wait for other results, let's get back to our guest in the studio. We were talking about the whole issue of beavers. And, you know, as more of these results come in, you were about to tell us, you know, what the legal position is in terms of transmission of results and whether or not, Buki was asking, you know, the fact that whether you, INEC, fulfill this promise or not has, you know, legal implications for the results so declared, because they are free to give us guidelines. That's what the law says, that in a manner which INEC prescribes.
Correct.
Right. Now, if it is in a manner in which INEC prescribes, and INEC has prescribed that they're going to give us results real time on a portal and all of that, so if they don't, shouldn't that have some kind of bearing on the results?
It will, if INEC does not follow the regulations they have themselves stipulated. We can then ask ourselves, what are the INEC regulations about this election? What is written down by their own regulation? And it's written down. Anyone can go and check, and it's written in nice English. After voting, the presiding officer transfers the results to a collation center of INEC. The officer goes one more step by transferring that Form EC8A through beavers, by scanning it by the beavers into the IREV. Number 3, it takes that machine called the beavers with the Form EC8A signed by the polling agents of the parties and himself to the registration area / ward collation center. All these 3 steps are written on each of them as prescribed by INEC, as prescribed by INEC, as prescribed by INEC. So what happened on February 25? Elections were conducted. They were recorded at each polling unit
on that form
EC8A.
Right.
So I want to check whether INEC actually fulfilled their own regulation. So they put it on the form. They were to transmit it or transfer it to the collection center, and also do it by beavers to IREV. They do it. They started doing it on that day. By 10 p.m., the first ones were being received by the IREV. The regulation didn't say it must be real time.
That was a personal promise from INEC's officials.
Exactly. Now, it didn't say number of days that you must upload by beavers to the IREV. It must be done. But the third one, which says you must take the beavers to the collection center, obviously must be done immediately after you close voting. And they did just that. They took those from EC8A
along with the
beavers machines to the collation centers.
So can that loophole be legislated upon to avoid any subversion of the process in the future, as it's been suspected now, you know?
That will be the recommendation.
In the presidential election.
That will be a beautiful recommendation. But I'll go further to say that from the regulations today, as they stand, INEC cannot actually be accused of not following their regulation, because they did substantially, because they started that upload on day one and they continue doing it. Now, the upload of beavers to the IREV is not as though that's the only way to cross-check what has happened. What is actually important is the Form EC8A signed by the polling officer, or the presiding officer, and the polling agents of parties. In fact, the regulation says that that is the building block of collation. The collation is not based on the ones on the IREV. Indeed, one section there, 93, of that regulation says that once voting has been done and it gets to collation centers, you use the document from the last place, which is, in this case, the polling units. And that if for any reason we can't find that form, you then look at the IREV. It goes further to say that if for any reason the one in IREV is not even there too, you then ask the party agents and the police for their own photocopy of that Form EC8A. So that is the fallback position. That tells you the importance of that hard copy Form EC8A is the key, because that one is signed by the polling agents of parties, which is transmitted to the parties' institutional room of the parties themselves. So they know the answer, they know the results from midnight that day. Because what does it take for the agent to do, but to snap what has been snapped to the beavers and to the IREV? Snap it also with your WhatsApp to your party situation room, and they see the result from you, and it's credible. Indeed, many people have seen today on TV who are saying that what is on the IREV is not okay. They have to prove that by referring to the Form EC8A, which is the original thing. So,
which everyone was supposed to have
signed. Had to have signed.
So now, sir, it appears as if, you know, I wonder if we didn't quite anticipate all of the challenges accompanying the use of the beavers, because this is the first time Nigeria is deploying it on a large scale. You know, we used it for the Ekiti election, one off-cycle election. We used it for the Osun election, one off-cycle election. But during the presidential election, opposition parties contested the outcome of that result, and then they demanded inspection of the materials or of the information on the INEC website. They went to court. INEC sought, you know, the position of the court to vary the order, and then said that it wanted to reconfigure the beaver. So did we anticipate all of this? You know, what lessons are we learning from it for future references, for future elections? Because the result is being doubted now, you know, of the data that is on the beavers.
Number one, we are glamorizing the beavers as though we have moved many steps forward. We have moved forward with the beavers. But what does the beavers actually give us? In this election, we have moved a few steps forward from the past. And what is it? The beavers today will accredit a voter. It will ensure that the person holding that PVC is a man before the INEC official, and is accredited by his fingerprints and his facial recognition. So we now know today, and that's why I can say to the world, so much number of people are in this polling unit, and it's not controverted because it's already, the people who vote are in the beavers machine already. Maybe there are 1,000 people in the beavers machine, pre-recorded, because INEC has all the details of everybody who has been registered to vote. When you come, and out of the 1,000 people, only 700 people show up. It's recorded in the beavers that only 700 show up. So you can't have a result that would have 1 million voters it will be cancelled on the spot. But that means it's false. So Beavers has done that for us. And it's great. It's a huge departure from the past. So we must praise INEC for this Beavers machine that they introduced. To that extent of, okay, we now know number of voters. We also know one more thing. We know that from that point, you record the results, and you now put it in Beavers also to capture it. It's there. It doesn't need internet service to do that, to scan and all that. So it's recorded and it's kept in that machine. Even if they fail to transmit to IRF in the same day, it doesn't matter. It's still there. So you can go and check later on. But the real thing is the one that is signed by the parties.
But what we also know is that there's a possibility in the future that opposition parties will contest the results of the elections. And I've asked that, because we now know that, should we now deploy Beavers, purchase Beavers on a larger scale? So INEC doesn't present a position or an excuse, as it's been viewed in some quarters, that it needs to reconfigure the data on the Beavers before it can make it available for inspection.
Yes, they have to reconfigure for each election. That's also a technical issue, which I can't actually speak to. But they've also said that after that reconfiguration and after the elections, you can still come back and inspect, and you will find whatever was recorded for the election.
But there's a huge level of distrust.
Ah, yes.
Coloring that process.
Definitely there is. You see, what it is now is that we must live with what we have today. What we have today is a Beavers that has ensured that only accredited people vote. And nobody can turn around to add voters or add figures to it. That is big. And I say kudos to them. But to see Beavers as a magical wand that has now turned election in Nigeria to foolproof is not so. That's just what it is. Because even when you upload to IREV, it does not guarantee anything. It does not, because that doesn't mean that that is the right thing that has been uploaded. Because by the time the agents turn back, right, anybody can TPEX before they upload. Because if the man says, I can upload now, you go home, I will upload later, which is what happened in that last election. He now TPEX it and send it to IREV. So in IREV, you'll find all sort of things. But that is not a problem. Why? Because the original one has been signed by all parties. And that is what
and they're supposed to have copies. So even if you TPEX after they've left,
forget it.
The one you've uploaded, which you've TPEXed, has no value, provided one of the agents of the party or any of the others who are having copies and come up and say, this was the one we signed, this is it. Exactly. It's not the same thing as the one on the IRA.
And one more thing I want to add is that even if they actually fail to transmit it to IREV, it does not invalidate the elections. I will want Nigerians to know that today, that failure to transmit it, whether you call it real time or same day or 2 days after, it does not invalidate the elections, because the regulations say that it is the form ECHA that is the building block for collation. They will not even use your IREV for collation. What does the IREV do? The IREV allows you and I to go to the INEC portal to see. I can see my polling unit's election result today. And for many people I've spoken to, it actually matches what happened in their polling units. Many that we have seen today that we saw pictures of dogs and cats in the IREV, how many are they? Will this change the results from what we have today? And again, it will be more credible for parties who are disputing these elections, who have this distrust, to say to the world, our party agents who are the polling units have sent us their own results that is snapped. We have won. based on those results, and will show it in court. If they said that today, then the people who have been declared winners will be holding their breath, because they know that, they have something. But they're not saying that. All I'm hearing is, without that transmission to Beavers, from Beavers to IREV, no elections. What is more credible? To say, cancel an election because you did not upload through Beavers to IREV, that's one proposition. Cancel it because you didn't transmit, as you said you will. Or number two, cancel this election because what you've announced in your collation center nationally
is different from what we have.
What we have. And we have it. In fact, we'll announce to the world, Abia State, Enugu State, in short form, and we will show you all the polling unit papers when we reach the court. Then everybody will be waiting for that day in court. But they're not saying that. So we should look at the whole thing in an equitable way. If we must come to equity, let's come with clean hands. Let's not vilify INEC too much. Yeah, they did a tacky job coming late to the venue of voting and not uploading on time, but they did eventually. It took them 14 days, 12 days to do it, but it has been done. They did it. So they followed the regulation. Real time is not
is not in the
regulation.
Which is where perhaps the issues.
So maybe in future we can put that there, but on one condition: can INEC fulfill that? Do we have the technical capacity to do it? Is it doable? Because it's no point to use a regulation that is not doable.
So what was different, between now, these elections, governorship and state assembly elections? I noted yesterday, less than 3 hours after the conclusion of official polling time, results had already begun being uploaded. But during the presidential election, Nigerians had 1 or 2 days to wait. So what was different?
Well, I can't speak for INEC, actually.
But what can you glean? What can you glean?
Look, you see, one thing I am not really good at, unless I'm writing some satire, is conspiracy theories. But if I must write a satire for you on that, I can write a conspiracy theory on that also. It's because somebody wants to rig somewhere. That's why they are delaying it. But one can say that even if anybody does that, you see, the fact is, if anyone does that to deceive the world and fill up something else into the IREV, thinking he has succeeded in rigging himself into power, the other side will not watch and let him go away with it. They will show the Form ECHA of the polling units around the country. And it will prove that they're just liars, they're pretenders to victory. So it will be found out.
Well, we'll wait to see that. Speaking of the results management process, during the governorship and state elections, the National Collation Center is pretty much de-emphasized. So we don't have that regular briefings that we have from the INEC chairman, who has, pretty much concluded his work of declaring the president-elect. But there's been a lot of concerns arising from the governorship elections in states this time around. For instance, in River State yesterday, we heard differing accounts from the AIG in charge of the elections in River State over which local governments will have a repeat of the elections today. There are also concerns, in some parts of Lagos, VGC, for instance. So where do we take all of these concerns to? What questions should we be asking INEC about, a central briefing of all of these concerns, such that we're not wondering what exactly is happening?
Before we go to that, a few more minutes to conclude with our guest here. Yeah. Please,
we're talking about the results.
Minutes to answer
the results management process. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, I didn't get your question again, please.
We're talking about the results management process. Okay. Just before Charles came on.
What lessons did we learn do you think, from this process that we can take forward?
More specifically, how can we get INEC, to provide a central, briefing place that we can take these concerns about the state elections as well?
I think for states, it is a state level of INEC that handles this, while the presidential one is done by the national level through the chairman of INEC, but the ones for the states are done by the state level authority of INEC, and that is where we can take all our concerns to for solutions.
But isn't it worrying that we don't have clarity on quite a number of issues arising from the state elections as well, but we don't have, a system that we can use to hold INEC to account?
There is indeed a system. You can still write, contact the INEC headquarters for any irregularities you perceive at the state level. So you can actually, get in touch with the INEC chairman directly, by letters or other means you have to dispose of emails, whichever level of link you have with them, you can use that to make your comments on anything.
But the responses are not real time, just as the concerns from the IREM.
They're not real time.
Okay, so let's have your final thoughts on, the outcome of the state election so far.
Well, I would say congrats to the winners, and I will say that whoever is aggrieved should pursue it in court and not stick to protests outside. I would have loved to mention something on the FCT question as well, if there's still time on the FCT issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the FCT issue, we have had comments of many who are saying that we need to also consider that FCT must be won. 25% of FCT must be won by anybody to declare the Nigerian president.
Yeah.
I have an opinion on that, which is, of course, subject to adjudication by the courts. The winner of the election must have the highest number of votes cast in the election, and he must have 25% of the votes cast in a quarter of all the states of federation plus FCT. But what that means to me is 36 states plus 1, FCT being regarded as a state. So 25% of 37 states, FCT included, is what we should be looking at. And that will come to 24 2/3, which should mean 25, to make it a round figure. So we're talking of having 25% of the votes cast in 25 states, FCT inclusive. And that is what would make sense. But if we must insist, as some lawyers have said, and they are respected lawyers as well, that you must have 24 states plus FCT. In other words, you must have FCT along with what you have.
But is that what the law says, or is that the conjunction that the law says, 25 states and the FCT, or plus the FCT? Because that "and" has been interpreted to mean alternatively or.
The "and" simply means 24 states plus one more state, making 25. But it does not mean that FCT must be among the 25 states. If you insist that FCT must be there, then you are saying that if a contestant has won majority of the votes, and if he has indeed won 25% of all 36 states of the federation, all 36 states, he won 25% on them too, and fails to get it in FCT, you will have failed totally. That would be ridiculous to go with, because it suggests that FCT people are special people. So it suggests that they have a veto on who becomes Nigeria's president. It also implies that they have some sacred rights to anoint a president. There's nowhere in our constitution that gives all those rights to Obligated residents. People should all relocate to Abuja then and become anointed of
residents.
So there's nothing there. Really.
That's how we're going to have to leave it. I want to thank you so very much for being our guest on the program today. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for taking our time from your Sunday to be with us.
Thank you, Buki. Thank you.